Hello there guys, and welcome to Mad Doc Minis. In this video I'm going to be tinkering around with this Cayman patrol boat from Frankezipanzercorp. Take a good look at these initial photos because these represent the intended design for this kit. I, however, am going to modify mine and bring it round to the Warhammer 40,000 universe. In Warhammer 40,000, boats and ships are very underrepresented because the Navy essentially operates out in space with spaceships, doesn't it? So we don't tend to think about watercraft and warships in the traditional sense. But I think there is room for boats and ships in Warhammer 40,000. And this thing got me thinking of the Vietnam era Pibber patrol craft. And whenever I think about Vietnam in a 40k kind of sense, I tend to think of Catachans. And I think that's very deliberate on GW's part. You tend to, they're borrowing from themes, aren't they? So I think this thing's going to really fit well into a Catachan themed army. The main modification I made to this was to put lasguns sticking out of the side weapon ports rather than the intended weapons, just to solidify it in the 40k setting. I mixed up a green colour in my airbrush and covered that over the whole thing. I'm getting a little bit more confident with airbrushing these days, really ever since I invested a little bit more in the airbrush itself. Mine is about maybe 40 or 50 pounds worth, so it's not really expensive, but it's not super cheap either, and it really does the trick well for me. Now, once I finished covering the whole thing in the green colour that I mixed up, I then came in with a brown kind of tan colour and created a subtle camouflage pattern over the thing. Now, you could go for a lot more contrast here and you could have something more vibrant, especially in the 40k setting, but I wanted something quite muted, so this worked out quite well for me. Now, when I finished the camouflage, I came in on the bottom of the hull with some Mephiston red to kind of simulate that kind of oxide paint that they put on the bottom of boats to protect them and, try and resist corrosion and things like that. And because we've got the whole hull present here, I wanted to do it justice and paint it properly. So this isn't flat bottomed, it does have the whole hull. I then went around the boat, filling in some of the details with lead belcher and black Templar, just to break up the camouflage pattern a little bit really and make it look a little bit more interesting. Now, once I'd completed that, I decided to throw down some weathering on this thing using some heavily watered down orange paint. And I went around all the rivets. Now, it looks a bit extreme in this footage here, but what I was tending to do is dry my brush in between and wick away some of the excess fluid from the rivets, and that produced a really realistic effect. I also did a bit of streaking on selected rivets as well, and that looked really nice, especially after I threw a heavily watered down Agrax Earthshade wash over the whole thing. That just tied it all together, muted that rust a little bit, and made the whole thing look more realistic, I think, and I was really happy with those results in the end. Now, I used this man. This is my original man from my 3rd edition era Leman Russ Exterminator. Very characterful little sculpt that. He goes really nicely on the back here. I modified the intended weapon a little bit with a 40k gun shield as well and stuck that on the back, and that was pretty much complete. You can get a much better sense of this thing on the rotating platform, and please do keep an eye out for a Primaris Space Marine on there in a minute to give you a better idea of scale. This thing also reminds me of the US Civil War era ironclads. Things like the Merrimac has got a similar silhouette to it, minus the turret, of course. If you've enjoyed the content, guys, please consider liking and sharing. It really does help my little channel to grow and develop. And if you are not already subscribed, please consider giving us a sub. I really do appreciate all the support. Now, go and check out Frankezipanzercorp. I've put their details in the video description for you. Give them some love if you like the look of their stuff. And I will now throw down some glamour shots for you. So enjoy those, and until the next time, take care.